Hey there everyone, Ramesh here, back again with another video. In this video, we'll take a look into top 10 Java tricky coding interview questions. Well, these are the pretty interesting coding interview questions, guys, and do watch this video till end. I'm sure that you will get something out of this video. Alright, so these are the frequently asked Java tricky coding interview questions, guys, and you may get same question or similar kind of question in the interviews. In this video, we will take a look into 10 coding interview questions. Alright, and yeah, so you may get this kind of questions in the coding technical round or written test. So basically, you will get a code snippet and you need to trace the program and you need to tell the output. Okay, you need to explain the output. In written test, you will get a question like this. You will get a program or a code snippet, and then you will get a multiple choice questions. You need to select the correct option, right? So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute piece of code in the IDE, and I will explain you the program and the output and all the stuff. Alright guys, without further ado, let's get started. Well, the first question is, consider the following program and predict the output. If we can observe this code snippet is related to object-oriented programming concept, that is polymorphism. Well, first let me copy this code snippet and let me quickly paste in the IDE. So I am using IntelliJ IDEA. Well, if you can closely observe this code snippet, this class, test class, has a print method, and print method is basically overloaded 3 times. Okay, first print method takes integer wrapper class as argument. Second, print method takes primitive type, that is int, as a method argument, and third, print method takes long as a method argument, right? So these are the 3 overloaded methods, right? And this is called a method overloading, and this code snippet is related to polymorphism, right? Polymorphism is an object oriented concept, and in polymorphism we have 2 types, right? Compile type polymorphism is also called method overloading, and runtime polymorphism is also called method overriding. Well, this is the method overloading, right? In a main method, we have created object of test class, and we have just called the print method, and we have just passed the value 10. Now the question is, we have 3 overloaded print methods, and which print method it will call, right? So basically you can see the method argument. So based on the method argument, it will call the print method. Well, in order to find the output of this code snippet, first you need to understand in which order JVM will match the method argument type, right? So let me write the comment over here. So this is the very important, guys. JVM matches first primitive int, and then long, and then wrapper integer class, and then we have int triple dot, that is called a variable arguments, right? Var args, right? So we have these 4 kinds of types, and JVM always looks for the int, the method which has a integer as a method argument, and next comes long, next comes integer wrapper class, next comes var args, that is variable arguments, right? So JVM will basically match the order in this way. It will first look for the method which has a primitive type int. Okay, now if you can execute the program, and you can able to see it will print the int as a output. So if you can see here, right? So always remember this order, and definitely you will get this kind of question, or I mean the same question or similar kind of question, right? And let's say if I commit this and if I run the program, then what will be the output? The output will be long. Look at here the order. If int is not specified, then JVM will match for long. So let me run the program, and if you can able to see long, right? I hope you understood, right? So just understand, just try to remember this order. All right, let's go ahead and let's head over to the next question. Next question is, what is the output of the following program? Well, if you can closely observe this code snippet, it is related to string, right? So this question is related to string. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply copy this code snippet and go to ID, and I will paste it here. Now let's understand this code snippet. Well, in string, basically we can create string object in two ways, right? First way is by using string literal, and second way is by using new keyword. And here you can see string s1 is created using string literal. So whenever we create a string object using string literal, which is stored in string constant pool. So what is string constant pool? Well, string constant pool is a special memory allocated in the heap area, and whatever the string objects we create using string literal, that objects will be stored in the string constant pool. And JVM will basically manages string constant pool for the string objects which are created by using string literal. Okay, next line of code you can see right here, s2 object is created using new keyword, and this object is stored in a heap memory. Okay, perfect. Now the important thing here is the intern method. All right, what intern method does? Well, intern method basically, it will copy the object, that is s2, from heap memory to string constant pool. Now if you can see, s2 object is stored in heap memory, right? And explicitly we can copy this object hello from heap memory to string constant pool using intern method. All right, great. Now you can see s2 object is now stored in string constant pool, but the important thing here is hello. So hello object is already there in a string constant pool, and again intern method here, it is just copying the same hello content from heap memory to string constant pool. But what JVM does, it will basically check whether the same content, the same value is exist in the string constant pool or not. If it is already exist, then it will simply point this reference to that object, and it will simply return that reference. It won't store again the same content of the value in the string constant pool. Okay, that is the important point, guys. And now s1 and s2 both are pointing to the same object, same content, that is hello, right? And here we are using equal to operator. So basically we use equal to operator to check the address comparison or the memory location. Well, in this case, s1 and s2 both reference variables are pointing to the same memory location which contains hello value. That's why this will print true. Let me run the program, and there we go, output is true, because s1 and s2 both reference variables are pointing to the object hello, right? And here intern method basically copy the object from heap memory to string constant pool, and if this hello is already exist in the string constant pool, that's why s2 is again pointing to the hello. Let's say if I change the content from hello to hello1, and if I try to execute this, it will print false, because s1 is pointing to hello, s2 is pointing to hello1. So look at here, the content is different, right? Even though both objects are stored in string constant pool, but the content is different. That's why s1 is pointing to hello, s2 is pointing to hello1. That's why equal to operator returns false. If both the objects are, both the reference variables are pointing to the same object, then only it returns true. All right, I hope you understood this code snippet and why we get output true. Let's head over to the next question now. Next question is, what will be the output of the following program? Well, if you can see this code snippet, again this code snippet is related to OOPS concept, okay, inheritance. Well, let me quickly copy this code snippet and let me paste it in the ID, and then we'll try to understand the code. Well, we have a base class with a constructor, and within a constructor we have just written system.out.println, and we are just printing base string. Next we have a derived class which extends a base class, and derived class has a derived constructor which just prints a derived string. And then we have one more class, derived, which extends a derived class. Okay, and again it has a constructor which just prints derived string. Now we have a test class, public test class, which has a main method, and here we have just created object of derived with a parent class reference derived. Now the question is, whenever this object is created, what will be the output? Well, as we know that whenever we create an object by using class, then its constructor will get called, right? Now you can see we are creating an object of derived, alright, and it will call this constructor, right? So you might be wondering, it will just print derived, right? But it will print basically a base, derived and derived. Well, let me run the program and let me show you the output. So look at here. So this statement printed base and then derived and derived. So why it is printed these three lines of statements? Well, why it is printed base, derived, derived, right? So let me explain you guys. Well, probably you know about the super keyword, right? So basically super keyword we can use to call the parent constructor. And if you can see here, derived class extends derived, and in the constructor, if we don't specify super here, right, if we don't specify super, then compiler will basically automatically provide a super to call the parent class constructor, right? So let me quickly remove this, and again let's say compiler internally provides super to call the parent constructor. Now the controller comes here, and again this class has a constructor, and this class extends base. So derived is a subclass of base super class. So again compiler will provide a super, and it will again call the parent constructor, that is base. That's why it will first print base and then derived and derived. So let me go ahead and let me put the debug points here, and let me run this program in the debug mode so that you will understand clearly. So look at here, first the control comes in this class derived, because we are creating an object of this class. Now it will come inside the constructor, and then by default compiler provides super statement here, and it will call the parent constructor. So let me quickly go to the next step, and look at here, it will comes to the derived, right? And again it will come to base. Let me go ahead and and then it will print the base. Let me provide a breakpoint over here, and there we go, it will print the base, and then it will come to again derived, there we go, and it will come to derived, right? That's why the output is base, derived and derived. I hope you understood the flow, right? So if I give here super statement, it will call the parent class constructor, isn't it? Now again I will provide super statement here, it will again call the super class constructor. Now this program also gives the same result, right? So let me run the program, and if you can see the output, base, derived, derived, right? If we don't provide a super statement, then compiler will internally provide a super statement to call the parent constructor. I hope you understood this code snippet, and this kind of question you will definitely get in the coding interview round or the written test. And this is one of the OOPS concept related questions, so try to understand this code snippet, and you may get same question or similar kind of question, right? Try to understand the concept and the flow so that you will be able to answer this kind of question. All right, great. Let's head over to the next question now. next question is consider the following program. Well, if you can see the program here, this program is similar to the previous program that we have seen. So this one, right? So this program is related to method overloading, and this program is also related to method overloading, right? So let me quickly copy this code snippet and head over to the IntelliJ IDEA. Let me paste it here. Now let me rename this test over here. Alright, so look at here the code snippet. So this code snippet is related to method overloading, and in one of the previous code snippet I have explained this kind of program, right? And now you can able to guess the output of this code snippet, isn't it? So look at here, test method has 4 method overloaded methods, that is poo method. First poo method takes integer, wrapper class integer as a method argument. Second takes short, third takes long, and int args. Well, I have already told you, like, JVM checks, matches the order in this way. First it will look for integer. If it is not there, then it will look for long, and if it is not there, then it will look for wrapper integer class, and then it will look for var args, right? In this code snippet you can able to see that int primitive type is not present in one of the overloaded method. Next comes long, so it will print the long, right? Poo long. So let me run the program, and if you can see, able to see the output, poo long, right? So int is not present in any of the overloaded method. That's why JVM will look for other type, that is long, and if it is present, then it will print. If we comment out this, then if we run the program, it will next look for wrapper integer, right? So look at here, poo integer, and then if we comment out this, now let me run the program, and it will look for var args. So look at here the order, and then if we comment this, then definitely it will print this one, right? So I hope you understood the order in which the JVM will match the types of the method arguments. So this is pretty interesting question, guys. I hope you understood. Just remember this order, you can able to answer this kind of questions easily. Okay, let's go ahead and let's head over to the next question. Next question is look at the following code and choose the right option. Well, if you can see the code snippet, it's pretty interesting, and it is related to access modifier concept. So shape class has a protected method display, and we have a circle class which extends shape parent class, and we need to guess the access modifier here, right? And we have 4 options, like only protected can be used, public and protected both can be used, public protected and private can be used, only public can be used. Well, let me quickly copy this code, and let me paste it here so that you can able to understand more. Let me remove this public, because in Java file we should have only one public class, right? I have already test class. Perfect. Now you need to guess the access modifier of the child class. Well, in the parent class or the super class, we have a method display which has the access modifier protected, and whenever we override this method in the subclass or the child class, the access modifier should be a less restrictive or the same access modifier. For example, here I can use a protected. Okay, this is supportable and this should work, and I can use the public. Okay, so this also works. If I use private, it doesn't work. Okay, so it is more restrictive, right? So whenever you override the method in the subclass or the child class, make sure that the access modifier of the method should be less restrictive or same access modifier. In this case, we should provide protected or public, isn't it? I hope you understood. So this question especially asked for beginners, just to check your knowledge on access modifiers. Alright, great. Let's head over to the next question, and here you need to choose option B. Public and protected both can be used, right? Well, the next question is, consider the following program. Well, again, if you can see the code snippet, this is related to OOPS concept. Alright, so let me copy this code snippet and let me go to the IntelliJ IDEA. Let me paste it here, and if you can see here, we are using again the polymorphism concept over here, and in a main method we are creating the object of derived class with a parent class as a reference variable, that is base class, and we are calling the method poo method and bar method. So the question is, which poo method and bar method will get invoked? We have poo and bar method in both the classes, right? Base class and derived class, right? So this is the main the key, right? We need to guess which poo method and bar method will get called. So this is basically called upcasting. So here we are creating the object of derived class, but we are using parent class as a reference variable, and whenever you create object of the child class using parent class as a reference variable, then the child class or the subclass method should be called first, because this is the runtime polymorphism. So if you can run the program, and if you can able to see, it will print derived poo and derived bar. Let's say I have another method bar1 and bar1. Now you can guess. Let me call the bar1 here. Now, as we know that this is a runtime polymorphism, so it will first look for bar1 method in the subclass, right? So bar1 method is not there, then it will call the parent bar1 method. So if I can run the program, and you can able to see the output as poo bar bar1. So bar1 is not there in the subclass. That's why it went for child class, parent class method. If I override this method in the again derived class, and if I say this one is derived instead of base class, so if I run the program, it should print in derived bar1. Okay, so this is the runtime polymorphism. So whenever we create an object of the child class using parent class as a reference variable, then it should first call the subclass methods. Alright, I hope you understood this code snippet. Let's head over to the next question. Consider the following program and predict the output. Well, this is the multi-threading related code snippet, right? And this is pretty interesting question, guys. So let me copy this code snippet first, and let me paste it in the ID. Let's understand the code snippet now. So we have my thread, which extends thread class and overrides the run method, and it simply prints this statement. And then we have thread test method, and within that we have main method, and we have just created a thread object, and we have called a run method on the thread object, and we have just printed one statement here. Now interviewer will ask you what is the output, and explain the code snippet. Well, if you have a knowledge in multi-threading, then you can able to easily understand this code snippet. Right here is the key. You can see here we are calling explicitly the run method over here, but ideally whenever we create a thread, we should start the thread by using start method. So thread provides a start method, right? And whenever we invoke start method, right, so start method internally invoke the run method, right? And here in the code snippet, they are explicitly invoking run method. So this is the problem. So this, whenever we call the run method explicitly, this behaves as a normal method execution. It won't execute the thread, it won't start the thread in a separate thread. So this thread will run as a normal method. Okay, and if you call the start method, then only it will start the thread and it will execute in a separate path. Alright, I hope you understood the code snippet. Interviewer will basically check your knowledge on the threading, right? So ideally we call a start method to start the thread. We don't call run method, and start method internally call the run method, right? So this is the main problem here. You need to call the start method here, but here we are calling run method. So whenever we call the run method explicitly, so this will behave like a regular method call. All right, great. So let's head over to the next question. Consider the following program and choose the correct option from the list of options. Well, again we have a base class, base 1 class extends base class, base 2 class extend base, right? And base class has a test method. Base 1 override the test method and provide the implementation, and again in a base 2 class overridden the test method and provided the statement. And here you can see in a main method we have created base 1 object, but we are trying to cast with a base 2 class, right? So this is not supported in Java, right? So this is a downcasting, isn't it? We have created an object of base 1 and we are simply casting base 2. We are simply making a cast with base 2 class here, but this is the downcasting, so it won't be supported in Java. So you need to select the option as a D. The program will result in exception, that is class cast exception. Okay, so this is pretty simple one. You might already know that. Next question is, consider the following program. Well, this is pretty straightforward and simple code snippet, and which is again related to string handling. So let me quickly copy this code snippet and let me paste it in the ID and let me explain the output. Well, if you look at the code snippet over here, string s1 equal to hello. Well, here we have created a string object using string literal. So whenever we create a string object using string literal, that string object will be stored in a string constant full. Well, I'm going to write a comment over here, string constant full. And here we have created an object of the string using new keyword, and this object will be stored in a heap memory. Okay, and again here s3 object we have created using string literal, so this will be stored in a string constant full. Okay, great. Now here, look at here if condition s1 equal to s2. So before understanding this, we need to understand the difference between equal to operator and equals method. Okay, so equal to operator, basically it checks whether these two objects are, reference variables are pointing to the same object or not. Okay, so basically equal to operator is used to check the address location or the memory location, whether s1 and s2 both are pointing to the same memory location or not. All right, so in this case s1 equal to s2, so both are pointing to different location, because s1 is created using string literal, which is there in string constant full. s2 is created using new keyword and it is there in a heap memory. So both are in different location, so both are pointed to a different location. That's why you can see the output is s1 and s2 not equal. Okay, let me run the program and look at here, s1 and s2 not equal, because s1 is pointing to the string object, that is hello, which is there in a string constant pool, and s2 object which is created using new keyword, which is present in a heap memory. So both objects have different memory location. That's why both objects are pointing to different memory location. Okay, so equal to operator is used to check whether the objects are pointing to the same memory location or not, right? And look at here, second if condition, s1 equal to s3. Well, s1 object is created using string literal and it is stored in a string constant pool. Similarly, s3 object is created using string literal and it is stored in a string constant pool. Well, basically JVM manages the string constant pool. Okay, so what JVM does, it will first check whether this hello object is stored in a string constant pool or not. If it is already present, then JVM will basically return the reference of that object. It means that JVM won't store two similar objects with similar content in the string constant pool. Alright, so look at the second condition over here, s1 equal to s3. So s1 object is created using string literal and which is stored in a string constant pool. s3 object is also created using string literal and which is again stored in a string constant pool. Well, basically string constant pool is managed by JVM. So JVM basically, it will check whether the string is present in string constant pool or not. Alright, if it is present, then JVM simply returns the reference, that is s3. Well, s1 is already stored in a string constant pool and s3 is again storing the same content, that is hello, in the string constant pool. But JVM will already check that hello is already present, right? That's why JVM, what it will do, it will just point this s3 to the hello. It won't store hello string again in the string constant pool. Only one occurrence of this object is kept inside string constant pool. Alright, it means that s1 and s3 both are pointing to the hello. And here we are using equal to operator to check the reference variables. Both are equal or both are pointing to the same object or not. So in this case, s1 and s3 are pointing to the same object. That's why you can see s1 and s3 are equal. Okay, here is the output, s1 and s3 are equal. Right, now let us see one more very important thing here is s1 equals to s2. Well, here look at here, we are using equals method. Okay, let me use equals method over here also, equals s3. Alright, so let me run the program first, and there we go. So look at here, we have created three string objects, right? s1 equal to hello, s2 equal to new string hello, s3 equal to string. Well, all of these three string objects have the same content, like hello, hello, hello. And if you can see the output, s1 and s2 equals, s1 and s3 equals. It means that equals method basically check the content of two objects. Well, here s1 equal to hello, s2 equal to new string hello. So hello, hello, it means the content is same, right? So equals basically checks whether both objects have the same content or not. If both objects have same content, then it will return the true and then it will execute the if block. Otherwise it will execute else block. Correct? So let me just change this one. Okay, hello 1. Let me run the program. And look at here. s1 is not equal to s2. Okay, the content is different. That's why it is went in a else block and is just printed s1 and s2 not equal. And again s1, s3. So content are different, right? That's why it went in the else block and it is printed s1 and s3 not equal. Okay, so in case of equals method, the memory location doesn't matter, right? The content matters. If content of both objects are same, then equals method returns true. Okay, so in Java, whenever you want to compare two string objects, then always use equals method. All right, great. So this kind of coding question you will get in interviews, and just try to understand the difference between equal to operator and equals method, so that whenever you will get this kind of questions, you will definitely answer it. Well, the next question is, consider the following program and predicate the output. Well, this is the code snippet again related to string. So let me quickly copy this code snippet and let me head over to the IntelliJ IDEA and let me explain you the code snippet. And before understanding this, let me run the program and let's see the output first. Here we go. So basically what we are doing here is we have created object of the string using new keyword, and we have passed 5 as a string object. After that we have added a system.out.println, and then this is the value, right? So 1 plus 10. So one important thing is, whenever this expression get evaluated, then it always goes from left to right. Okay, so in this case 1 is a operand, 10 is a operand, yes is a object, 1 is a operand. Okay, 10 is also operand, so this is basically called a operand. Okay, and here 1 and 10, so both are integer operands, right? That's why these two operands will get added. Okay, added means addition. 1 plus 10, 11. So you can look at here 11. After that we have a string object. It contains 5, and then 5 is concatenated with 11. Okay, and now it becomes 11 5. Okay, still 5 is a string, so it will again concatenate with 1. It becomes 1 1 5 1, and again string is concatenated with 1, so it will again concatenate with 10. It becomes 1 1 5 1 1 0. Alright, I hope you understood the result of this expression. Okay, so it is evaluated from left to right, and whenever you will get a string in the expression, that will be concatenated. Okay, great. Alright guys, these are the 10 tricky Java coding interview questions that you have been asked in many interviews, and even I also taken many interviews guys, and I have asked this kind of questions to the candidate. So go ahead and check out this blog post. So I have basically written a blog post on this topic and published on my blog, and I will provide a link of this blog in the video description below, so that you will take this blog post for your reference. Alright, so let me know if you want this kind of video, so that I can create for you guys. So this is just for top 10 Java tricky coding interview questions, but if you want more questions, then let me know in the comment section below. I will create more videos on this topic. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you are new to this channel, consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next video.